The Japanese have loved cherry blossoms since ancient times because so many people have recorded the cherry blossoms are in full bloom. In their diaries over the years, Japan actually has 1,200 years worth of bloom data. The relationship between the Japanese and cherry blossoms actually goes way back. During the Yayoi period, before Japan was even a unified nation, sometime before the 3rd century, cherry trees were seen as sacred because they were believed to house the gods of grain. Since cherry blossoms bloom based on temperature, people use them as a sign to start rice planting. There was even a tradition of predicting the harvest based on how the cherry blossoms looked. In the early 8th century, the Kojiki, Japan's oldest chronicle, introduced a goddess named Konohana Sakuya Hime. She was said to have floated on the mist, scattering flower seeds over Mount Fuji's skies. She was beautiful but short-lived, just like cherry blossoms. Some say the word Sakura actually comes from her name, Sakuya. Today, hanami means enjoying cherry blossoms, but back in the Nara period, in the 8th century, people were actually more into plum blossoms. Japan was heavily influenced by Chinese dynasties at the time, and plum trees came from the Tang dynasty. Their fragrance was highly valued, and the front garden of the Shishinden in Heian-kyo was planted with plum trees. The Manyoshu, Japan's oldest poetry collection, has 110 poems about plum blossoms, but only 43 about cherry blossoms, showing how plums were the favorites back then. Nobles would gather to compose poems while admiring plum blossoms, creating the early version of hanami. By the early 10th century, things had changed. The Koken Wakashu poetry collection had 70 poems about cherry blossoms and only 18 about plums, showing that cherry blossoms were becoming more popular. This happened around the time Japan stopped sending missions to Tang Dynasty and started developing its own culture. A historical record from 812 says that Emperor Saga held a flower banquet at the Shinsenan Garden, which is considered Japan's first official hanami event. The emperor loved cherry blossoms so much that every year afterward, they were presented to him as a gift. This kicked off the tradition of planting cherry trees in noble residences and estates, making hanami a widespread custom among the aristocracy. By the late 12th century, in the Kamakura period, samurai and local rulers also got into hanami. By the 16th century, during the Azuchi Momoyama period, warlord Toyotomi Hideyoshi took things to the next level by throwing a massive hanami party for 5,000 people. This festival lasted 5 days and included tea ceremonies, poetry readings, and no performances. Famous warlords like Tokugawa Ieyasu, Maeda Toshie, and Datti Masamune also attended, and they even dressed up in lower-class outfits, kind of like modern-day cosplay. During the Edo period, 17th to 19th centuries, hanami spread to common people. The 8th shogun, Tokugawa Yoshimune, planted massive numbers of cherry trees along places like the Sumida River and Asakayama in 1720. Soon, people started gathering under the blossoms with food and drinks, making hanami feel much more like the celebrations we know today. By the late Edo period, over 300 different cherry varieties had been developed. Among them, the fast-growing Somei Yoshino spread quickly across Japan. And today, about 70% of all cherry blossom trees used for hanami are Somei Yoshino. Nowadays, fewer people write poetry, but cherry blossoms still appear in tons of pop songs, both old and new. But why do the Japanese feel so strongly about cherry blossoms? Japan has distinct seasons, and spring marks the end of the cold winter and the start of a new school and business year. Seeing cherry blossoms in full bloom right at that moment makes people feel excited about new beginnings. At the same time, new starts often come with goodbyes. So depending on the situation, cherry blossoms can also feel bittersweet. Their soft pink color, the overwhelming beauty of full bloom, and their fleeting nature, all of it comes together to create something truly special. That's why hanami is going to stay an important tradition in Japan for a long, long time. And one last thing, since Japanese culture really respects nature, please don't shake the branches or try to make the petals fall on purpose. Let them fall naturally, just as they always have.